Ready, set, art. Art, meaning optical, right? So we're going to try to work with different types of grid systems, put shapes on top, and then alter that, all right? This one is a painted version, and I always think like the key to op art is making sure you have these sharp points. They shouldn't look like they bleed into each other. It should really feel like this checkerboard effect and nice clean lines. Now this is painted, so for virtual, if you want to do graphite pencil, marker, Sharpie, colored pencil, you probably have an easier time. In class, I used to do this with painting, so for your end, drawing is perfectly fine. So if you look at this one, it's very advanced. I'm going to show you how to get things like this started and simpler versions. All right, so there's three kinds: diagonal, radial, which is probably the easiest one, and grid. And grid, a lot of students like grid because you can put shapes on, rounded shapes on top and then go back and change the grid to make it look rounded and 3D. So that's a popular one too, okay? And you'll see this little worksheet in Google Classroom, okay? So let's start with diagonal. Diagonal means from two corners, two closer corners together. So whether it's these two corners or these two corners or these two corners or these two corners, either is fine, but across from each other doesn't quite work out. So you want to pick two corners close to each other. I put a boom box in the middle of that. All right, so let's get started with that. You can use the whole paper if you want. All right, I'm going to go like this. And you could either do jagged lines or curvy lines, and I'm going to do curvy lines. And generally, I think 4 is good. Could you do more? Sure, certainly could. Alright, now I've done one corner, now I need to go to the closest corner, or one of the closer corners, so either this one or this one. And I'm going to pick this side. Okay, like I said, this is just wavy lines. Now this looks like a big empty space, but we're going to put shapes on top of it. See, like here it was jagged lines, and I put a big boom box right on top of it. Okay, so could you technically, there was a student example that you'll see in the slides where it looks like a big old butterfly, right? So could you, this is when geometric shapes are great, by the way. Okay, so imagine, I know some of you are probably thinking, oh, I could just do daisies. Well, you could. All right. And I could keep going, but essentially that's how it works. Now, coloring wise, if you're going to stick to 2 colors, which I actually think for these, and you'll see it in Google Slides, when it's tints and shades, that means you take one color and you add white or you add black. It works really well for this one. If you do something like this, you have to remember that once you get to a shape that overlaps, right? Red, green, red, green. Well, sometimes students have a hard time when it's just 2 colors. They go red, green, 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 red. So because this shape is overlapping, they think, oh, well, that's the square that's green, and therefore I need to put this green. No, once it overlaps, it needs to switch colors, okay? So later when you color, like so for instance, this would be a section that's shaded, right? But so is this one. So is this one. Let's say we're keeping that white. Then this is shaded. This is shaded. Now, normally you would shade better than that. For a demo, I'm trying to go a little faster so that you get the idea. And there's a little section right there. All right, so we kept this section white, and these sections overlapping into it are dark. Now I go into this section. Well, if you look at this, this is gray, this is white, so this must be gray. This must be gray. Now that makes sense because look, there's that gray section and that part of that antenna would stay white and you would shade. This part would stay white and this part would be shaded. This is white, this is black, this should be shaded. Okay, this should be shaded. So I hope you get what I'm doing is that every other section you're changing it. If you're worried about accidentally putting a dark next to a dark and then it looks like it kind of bled into each other and you kind of lose that optical illusion feel, use multiple colors. Go beyond the two colors. Okay. All right, so that one is diagonal. Radial. Radial, I would say is the easiest one, but it's interesting. You know, it has a nice impact to it. So it may be hard to see because it's so small, but I put the dot here, not quite in the middle. I put it kind of off-centered. I put some lines going off of it. Could you do squiggly lines or jagged lines? Yes. And then you overlap some shapes into it. So if you look at it, I chose birds. I've seen naturally a lot of people did suns because when you think about it, it's kind of a natural one, or a heart, right? I've seen those. I just went with birds. All right, so this time I'm going to turn the paper this way, right? You can change the composition. I'm going to off-center my dot. I just want to put it at a corner. You want the radial effect. That means circular, not corner, okay? So I'm going to put my dot here. And this time I'm going to use my ruler, right? And I just keep going around and around like I did right here, okay? And then from there, I could put my different shapes. Maybe it's clouds, right? Clouds might be good. And I would just keep going and going. Now this is what's nice about this one. If I were doing this piece, I would probably do different shades and tints of blue for the back, and then my clouds would be white and pink, or white and gray. Okay, so could you technically have the background a different set of colors and then your subject matter another different set of colors that alternate? Yes. It just wouldn't work if you said white, 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 white. No, it would be white, gray, white, gray, white. Okay, so once a line crosses through, you're changing the sections, and that's radial. Last one's grid, and that's going to take me a little longer to explain, but essentially you put in a grid, you put in your rounded shapes, and then you're going to erase the lines inside, and then wherever the line crosses over, put a curved line and then meet back at the other side. Okay, so that's what I had done here. But you could change your grid. Like a normal grid is like this, right? And in this case, I created a diagonal grid. Does it still work? Yes. All right, so let me show how to do that. All right. I have a hand version here, so I'll do that one too. All right, so essentially, you're putting a bunch of lines. I'm going to do a big circle so that this is a little easier to see. Could you don't have to have the same distance in between. Could you have some small, some wider? Yes, yes. That actually probably creates a stronger interest. All right, you get the idea. If I kept going, I'm going to put some lines here. Could I do diagonal instead here? Yes. But I'm just kind of showing how to get this going. All right, if you have a stencil, of course that would work really, really well. I'm going to show a circle and then a weird shape. Okay. So I think I'm going to use this, almost tripped, the bottom of a bottle here. Sorry, can't get my pencil around there. All right, so here's my circle, right? And my next step is to erase those lines. Okay. Now I drew darker so that you can see it, but normally you would not draw that dark, okay? Because then look, those lines end up staying there. So I know some people complain in class, you're drawing too light. You have to sketch light. This is light. I would never draw normally this dark, but I have to do it for the videos, right? All right, so here I erase the lines. Wherever the center is, you move the line. When you curve the lines, you bend it away from it. Bend it away from it. So here's this line. starting here, and I'm going to curve the line away from it. This line is this way. So now, sometimes it's easier for me to flip it over. I'm going to curve the line this way. And remember, you've got to meet up with your other line. All right, so there's one curve. Now, this one here is away from here, so I need to curve that way. This one is away from that one, so I curve that way. This line is only slightly off from that dot, so I'm just going to put a slight curve for that one. Very slight, but going away from the dot. Alright, so now this circle looks like it's going away. Now I have to say 2 colors do work best for the 3D ones. It's more interesting. But if you have a hard time with it, what you could do is say like your background is red and black, and then this is blue and green, right? So you could do it, I'm sorry, maybe green and black, red and blue, right? So if you know you're going to get confused, that's how you would do it. All right, so to figure out the color part, let's pretend that's our darker color, X, white, X, white, X, white, X, white. Let's go over here, because this one is next to here, that's white, X, white, X, white, X. Let's go back here. That's white, so this one's X, white, X, white, X. These 2 bottom ones here, that one's white, but this one's X. Alright, so let's pretend, again, I'm going to do a fast shading. So we'll see that one. This one would be shaded in. Of course, craftsmanship-wise, I'd rather see that you try to do more than that. Alright, so dark, white, dark, white, dark. This one's dark, white, dark, white, shade. This would all be shaded. I'm going super fast, I know, but only holds so much data. There we go. White, dark, dark, white, dark, white, dark, dark. So see how that's starting to look like it's popping? That's essentially the idea. Okay, so what if you have a shape that's kind of odd? That's rounded, like this one, okay? Well, go ahead and erase. These ones are a little more fun. I like when you do this, and we can even maybe add a circle in the middle. Okay, so that means this line would stay straight. Okay, so I was just realizing that would be more fun. Okay, so I'm erasing my lines. That's our middle. Everything needs to move away from it. But because of these indents, we're going to curve it a little differently. Let's start at the top. So I'm going to curve very strong here, but I get to here and I curve it down because of that. And then I curve it back up and meet back at this line here. Okay, let's do the same here. So here's my line, curve, but bent this way, and then meet up at this line. Now I'm going to go this way. I'm going to curve upward like that because of that edge. See, I'm trying to match the other side. Curve down, and then try to curve this way, but then I meet up right down there. That's where my line is. Next one, this one goes this way. And look, it gets really close this time to here, but we'll keep it there. And then we meet up back here. Okay? Let's try doing this line. So I'm going to go ahead and erase my line. Curve, and then meet up back here. Okay? And it meets up again here, right? So, curve there. This one's actually very close to the middle, but it's actually a little slanted up, but I'll meet it up right there at my straight line, and then back up. Meets up there. Now moving away from that center. Okay? And I'm going to curve this way, but then back up. then back down, and then meet back up. And then there's my different shape other than a circle, but still three-dimensional from there. This one here is a grid that's diagonal, so it may be hard to see, but I'll put in a few lines so that you can see. Okay, and then there's some lines going this way. And I went like this and traced my hand. So now, if I were to do my three-dimensional hand, it would, this line kind of curves and meets up all the way down here, because my center is about here. And then there's this line going this way, and I'm going to turn this way. There's this line going this way, I'm going to turn this way. There's this line over here, and I'm going to turn that way. Okay, you can't see my finger, it's right here. Right? And then it meets up back at this other finger. Here's my other finger. Curve, curve, curve. This line here goes through. I'm going to curve it this way. See how it's starting to create this hand shape. And you can, so you can do that with a hand. Right? Alright, so going back to this. When you do your own assignment, you could do it in colored pencil, marker, graphite pencil. That's up to you. You could choose between diagonal, radial, or grid. You need to have subject matter on top of any of those optical illusions. Can you just have one subject matter? Yes, like this boombox, as long as it takes up at least 60% of the piece. So ideally, whatever your subject matter is, like these birds, about 60% it should take up. Alright, so I hope that helps you to start figuring out how to do a grid, and then you color it in, and that will get you going. Thank you and good luck.